Hey, good morning everyone, TrackMan44 here. Hey, you know what? Today's the day. We're finally getting around to putting the rebuilt injector pump back on the LX865 skid loader. It's a Ford New Holland. It's just one thing after another, you know, come up. I've had it rebuilt now for just a little bit of time, but we just hadn't had the opportunity to get into. We had so much weather, then so many other projects coming up. No excuses. It's time though now to put it back together and see if we get this thing to fire up. As you can see, we had to go through pretty much of an ordeal in order to get it removed. This housing right here is what holds the injector pump, and here's the drive gear goes into this housing that's literally bolted onto the front of the drive shaft or shaft that drives the injector pump. And there's no way that this can come off without taking that bolt off from the front of the gear and extracting the pump to the rear. So that's why we had to remove the radiator in order to get in here. There's literally no clearance that allowed us to do that. So it's okay. It gives us an opportunity to do a whole lot of maintenance to it, you know. So yeah, we're going to go back with everything all nice and new, crisp and clean. The injectors themselves have been serviced, you know, at the same time. And we scrubbed the fuel tank. We flushed the fuel tank a couple of times, and we're probably going to do it one more time with another 5 gallons of fresh fuel to make sure there's no chance of having any kind of contaminants or moisture or water in that fuel. As you can tell, we got to start off doing all the prep work that I should have done over the course of the last couple of months, but didn't get around to. But the prep work being getting all the old gasket surfaces nice and clean, you know, and ready for the new gasket material and things of that nature. You can tell on the aluminum surface here on this timing cover, you want to be very, very careful. Don't use a sanding disc, an abrasive disc, but use one of these. These are like Scotch-Brite pads that doesn't damage the aluminum. Because if you get real aggressive with the sanding disc, you're going to cause divots in your aluminum, you're going to have a leak. But over here on the steel plate, on the actual back end of the engine, there's no problem using the sanding disc, but we're still going to go ahead and use the abrasive wheel. Let's come in and take a look at the back of the engine, which is actually the front of the engine. But when we're talking about injection pump timing, with this particular engine here, as far as I can understand, there was actually no timing marks on the actual injection pump drive gear, which is why we took the care whenever we disassembled it to put number 1 piston to top dead center, and we went ahead and used a Dremel tool, and I marked a T horizontally here with a bottom to show 6 o'clock, and also expanded out here to 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, and at the same time in where the drive gear for the pump comes in contact perfectly on the cam gear, is I went ahead and put a mark on the drive wheel as well as on the timing gear right here. So now, as long as everything goes back with those marks lined up, I don't have to worry about having anything wanky with the timing on the injection pump. Now this here is not a spline shaft or anything, it's a taper shaft. But to refresh your memory, in disassembling this, I wasn't sure until after I had taken it apart, but there is a pin on the other side of the pump that locks the shaft in the position in which it needs to be rebuilt and reassembled so that you don't have to be concerned about the timing marks. On this particular pump, that pin is right here. It's a 3/8 nut, and there's a figure 8 washer here. You can see the washer moves with my finger. You loosen this up and then slide it to where that pin will actually come in contact with the drive shaft inside the pump, and you lock it down. And at that point, once you pin that pump in that position and take it to the rebuild shop, the rebuild shop has a machine that they actually set it in, and it reads the exact degree that the gear or that the drive is oriented to the pump, or a very accurate way of measuring the exact position of that shaft. Then they disassemble, reassemble everything, put it back together, and they align that injection pump back to that exact identical location it was when you pinned the pump. They tighten the pin back up, and then the repair is complete. I wasn't sure of that when we took it apart, which is why I used a Dremel tool and very carefully put these marks on the gears and shafts myself, just because I just didn't know. But now I do, and now you do too. Well, we got the injector pump on, timed correctly. We got the fuel filter on. Got all the 3 injectors, the cleaned injectors reinstalled, injector lines and return lines connected, timing cover on. Everything's looking good. We do have to replace the pan gasket, but we'll have to do that later. And if you take a look right here how close this is, you can see the actual drive gear off the timing pump, and you see there's just a simple plate that comes off. When you remove the plate, you can see there's ain't nothing but a nut that holds this on to that tapered shaft, and it'd be simple, except for the fact that by the time you put your fan on and you put your fan shroud on, there's not enough room to get your hand in to do virtually anything, or at least I can't, as far as removing that plate is concerned, and also getting in with anything substantial enough to break that nut loose. If that was accessible, none of this would have had to have happened. Again, the real mechanics probably can do it, but you know, we ain't no real mechanics, you know what I mean? Okay guys, as you can see, we got her pretty much back together. There's a few little odds and ends that still got to go in. We don't have any water in the radiator, but what we're going to do, we got some fresh fuel in it. We flush the tank and clean the tank as good as what we can. All the filters, everything else has changed. It should be ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and try to bleed the injectors here real quick, and then if we're a little bit lucky, it'll go ahead and fire off for us. But if it does start, we're only going to run it for a few seconds, you know, and then shut it back off. Okay, give it a shot. Well, I guess it's going to run. That's the most noise it's made in a while, huh?
Several months.
Okay. Well, now that we know it's going to run, we'll go ahead and put all the filters on, put all the panels, pieces, and everything on, fill her up with our antifreeze and all that stuff, and then get ready to get back out in the wood pile with it and put it back to work. This has been an aggravating repair, there's no doubt about it, because we had so many things, so many false flags, so to speak. But we did definitely verify that the transfer pump was definitely not pumping. It had originally become contaminated before, but passed enough of the contaminants, and I'm sure it was the water, through and into the injector pump as it was in the process of failing. And so it just took out the whole string, you know what I mean? But the injectors are nice, you know, everything is sounding pretty good. So, you know what? That's about all there is to this one here. And this Trackman 44 and his much younger son. And we are out of here, guys.